I'm entitling this Lockdown Hit the Reset Button. During this time of lockdown, we have experienced a time that none of us have experienced in our lifetimes, and there will probably never be a time like this again. Despite some measures being lifted, we have had 3 months at home, and our lives have been turned upside down to a new normal. But I believe that during this time we have had and could still have a huge opportunity. We have the option to hit the reset button. I hope that today you'll join me in thinking about this, and we'll begin by looking at this verse, this prayer from Psalm 139, verses 23 to 24. The verses that we're looking at today are from Matthew 6, verses 33, which says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness," and Matthew 6:19, which says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal." I'd like to ask you 3 questions during this time as we think about hitting the reset button during lockdown. The first question is, what are you seeking first? I think the best way to find out what we really are seeking first is by thinking about how you spend that one thing that you'll never be able to earn back, your time. So, if you were asked, what do you do voluntarily? What do you spend the most voluntary time in your day doing? What would you say? For some, it might be Netflix or TV or social media or family and friends. None of these things may be wrong in and of themselves or good in and of themselves. But it's important to think about this as we ask that question, what are we seeking first? From April the 20th to now, the amount of people who have been furloughed, hands up if you knew what that term meant before in February, has risen from 1.3 million to 9.1 million in the UK. Many have been made redundant. Schools have been closed, and those that are now open look very different. Grades are less certain. If you were seeking first work, if you were seeking first grades, if you were building up treasures on earth with your work and grades, with your schoolwork, that option has been taken away. If you're into sport, up until last week, the option for spending time looking up your team's latest news was taken away too. If you're into shopping, that option was taken away only just recently. There again. So there are many things, many other priorities that we have had, that we could have, that have been taken away. And though many have sadly become very ill and have sadly passed away over this time, many of us have been given a gift that we didn't have before, the gift of time. And this really reminds me of something that C.S. Lewis wrote. He said, "God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world." For many, this has been a time of pain due to illness, anxiety, the loss of loved ones, jobs, and to a much lesser extent, fantasy football. What we do with that extra time gives us the opportunity to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. So how do we do that? I've been reading a book called Finishing Strong. It's by a man called Steve Farrar. I'll put the details in the description. It's talking about Christian men. It starts off with the premise that it's not quite easy, but many Christian men, many Christians they start strong. But very few finish strong. So he gives this challenge to his readers. What are you doing daily to ensure that you finish strong? And it suggests one thing, and I pray that you would take it on board. He gives this analogy of picking up a Bible verse and chewing it over through the day. Maybe write it on a post-it, on a small piece of card at the start of the day, and put it somewhere that you will see through the day, on your fridge, your TV, your laptop. Every time you see it, read it. Maybe put it in your pocket if you go out. When you have a moment, pick it up and read it. Pray it over. Ask that God would change you through this process. That's the first question. Second question is, can you play a new rhythm? Clap this rhythm with me. Got that? Let's try another one. Cool. So, what do I mean when I say, can you play a new rhythm? I'm not just talking about music. You've probably heard the phrase, he marches to the beat of his own drum. It means that he does his own thing. He doesn't stick to the norm, to the status quo. So my question for you is, whose beat are you marching to? Every single day we march to a rhythm. It could be a ritual that we've just found ourselves doing, a pattern of behaviour. For example, if you're a child, you might choose to go into your parents' room and say good morning before going downstairs, or you might offer a grunt vaguely in their direction. Sometimes parents do that too. What do you do instinctively without thinking about each day? Maybe that's something that you could ask those who you live with. Ask your friends, what do you do instinctively each day? Maybe you pick up your phone and are glued to it for a good amount of time before greeting anyone. Maybe you always brush your teeth before you go downstairs or have a shave. I think it's important for us to think about, what can you do intentionally with those rhythms that we already have to seek first the kingdom? One rhythm that I do every day is I make coffee. I make coffee for myself because my wife doesn't like coffee that much. I make her a cup of tea. Now, I didn't set out to do this, but every time that I made a cup of coffee or made a cafeteria full of coffee, my son would ask me if he could push the button down after the timer had gone off. I didn't seek out to encourage my son to serve others or to do an act of service for me. But it just started organically that he would, once he heard that timer go off, he would say, "Daddy, can I push that down for you so you can have your coffee?" So parents, how can you encourage your child to have a servant heart? Children, how can you serve your parents, serve your friends? Teenagers, how can you have an impact, have a servant heart for your community? There's another thing. Since lockdown began, we've been encouraged to wash our hands more regularly, mostly for around 20 seconds. So how could you do something like that? How could you do something that is a regular part of the day, that happens regularly, and transform it into seeking first the kingdom? Here's one answer.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Thy kingdom come, we done ourselves as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, forgive us sins, please forgive me who sin against us. And don't bring temptation, deliver us from evil, the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Thirdly, we've got a book that my first son, was given when he was born, and we've been reading it to him since. It's a book called God and Me, and there's a devotion every day. It asks questions that are really engaging for children, and it gives a short Bible verse and a prayer each day. Now we've started a new rhythm where every morning at breakfast we open up that God and Me book and we open up the Bible and we read a page. So what new rhythms could you begin to play? Maybe when you pick up your phone, open the Bible app first and get your verse for the day. Maybe before you hear or read the news, thank God for the new day. And after you've heard the news, rather than wallowing in what might be a difficult or sad news day, bring it to God in prayer, the people and the situations involved. And maybe at the start of each day you could find a Bible verse to chew on before you chew on your breakfast. Maybe you could set up a socially distant picnic or quiz for a few neighbours. And thirdly, are you restless? Who loves Christmas? What do you love about Christmas? You know, I really enjoy Christmas, and I think what I enjoy most about it is that there's something about the day that has not been spoiled. Again, unless you're a key worker, thank you, key workers. And that is, it's a time of rest. Now, you may be saying to your screen, a time of rest, I have to do all of the presents, all of the food, arrange family politics of who we're going to be visiting when, and we'll just hold up for a moment there, because that's not what I mean. We've had 3 months of lockdown, unless you're a key worker. Again, thank you, key workers. Your school or job has changed a lot. So do you feel rested? Jesus said, if you are weary or heavy laden, come to me and I will give you rest. Back in Exodus, when the Israelites had just come out of Egypt, they'd come out of slavery. It says in Exodus 16, verse 27 to 30, on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather manna, and they found none. The Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you the food for 2 days. Each of you stay where you are. Do not leave your place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. Is your heart restless? Have you found rest in him? The Sabbath is a weekly rest that we get to do. It's like a Christmas every week. Having Christmas every day might be a bit much. For the last couple of years, in my family, we have done Sabbath every week. It's a time where we put down our phones and turn off other screens and intentionally be with each other. We have a good meal, go for a walk, play a game, read Bible stories, think of ways to learn Bible verses with actions. It's something we look forward to. It's a little oasis of rest. So, what are you seeking first? Can you play a new rhythm? Are you restless? I pray that today you would choose to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. I pray that you would set up new rhythms, new patterns of behaviour that would help you to store up more treasure in heaven than on earth. I pray that if you are restless, you would commit to picking an afternoon and evening, or better yet, a whole day, which can be a Sabbath, a time when you can focus on the people who are in the room, not in your phone, and focus on the God you maybe haven't acknowledged was there too. Thank you for listening. God bless.